Welcome, everyone, to the Week 9 series of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack McNicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you had not had the chance, go check out our website at justsayingfootball.com and follow us on Instagram for news, for article updates and video updates at JustSayingNoGWJS. 8 games kick off at 1 p.m. tomorrow. But before we get into that, we have a huge COVID update. 14 teams were hit with COVID this past week. Packers, 49ers, Lions, Ravens, Texans, Cowboys, Bears, Broncos, Cardinals, Eagles, Colts, Chiefs, Raiders, Falcons, Dolphins, and the Bengals. Now, we are expecting the games to happen tomorrow. They haven't come out and officially said they are, haven't come out and officially said they aren't. We're purely judging this based on the fact that the 49ers had a case on Wednesday, and they still played the Thursday night football game. Wanted to give you guys that update now. Stay tuned for more. Yeah. We're all going to be listening and paying attention, obviously. Now that is done, let's get into the early game kickoffs. We're going to start with a great one where the Seattle Seahawks are going to upstate New York to play the Buffalo Bills. Jack, run us through that game.
Yeah, in this game, we got two people that are just unlimited this year. The Seattle Seahawks and the Buffalo Bills atop of both of their divisions, looking great quarterbacks, both making huge plays this year, especially our guy, Russell Wilson. Can't go a week on this show without talking about Russell Wilson. 71.5% completion right now, Shawnzy, and leading the league with 26 touchdowns right now, on pace to get over 50. And our boy Josh Allen, who we've doubted in the past, is really looking great. And he's, this is going to be a great quarterback matchup. On the other hand, the real reason it's going to be great is that Josh Allen has the chance to have a big game against the Seattle defense that is terrible.
Yeah, the Seahawks defense is not what it used to be. The Legion of Boom is no longer there, obviously, and you're seeing that the Seahawks are pretty much reliant on what their offense, mainly Russell Wilson, can do week in and week out. And don't get me wrong, it's really, really impressive. But like you said, this opens up an opportunity for Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen to kind of have a very, very big day.
Yeah.
They can do a lot against this team. There's no Shaquille Griffin, which means he's going to be getting the second cornerback. However, the Seahawks do get Jamal Adams back, which will be big for the blitz packages, as well as just purveying the deep ball to make sure that Stephon Diggs doesn't catch it.
Yeah, I'm looking for a big game out of the combo of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, as I am all week. But on the other side of the ball, like you mentioned, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, the Buffalo Bills have weapons on their side as well. What I'm really looking for here is for Buffalo to get their run game started. We've been seeing them go through a carousel of Zach Moss and Devin Singletary on the offense, and they're going to have to get it going with Jamal Williams back on that Seattle defense. We mentioned it's bad, but it's going to get better with him in there. He's going to be all over there. They're going to have to get the run game going and try to, get the clock. With this one, I'm going to go with the Bills, though. I am going to go with the Bills going into this one. I do like Josh Allen this year. He's been tough, but I think that he can actually take this and give Seattle yet another loss.
I want to go Bills here because I like what they've been doing. And you mentioned the running back situation, and I just wanted to say the Bills finally had a really good run game last week. Both Singletary and Moss, 14 carries, over 80 yards. Moss had the 2 touchdowns. So that's always a positive to see, and that's what you want to see if you're the Bills. I'm going to go Seahawks, though. I like what the offense have done. You never know. Is it going to be DK Metcalf with 2 touchdowns, or is it going to be Tyler Lockett with 2 touchdowns?
Or 3.
Or 3. You really never know with this offense. Russell Wilson has been playing lights out. I also think that with no Josh Norman, it's going to be a little bit easier for them to pass on them. And also, one of the things I want to point out about the Seahawks defense, that although they aren't the best, they just traded for Carlos Dunlap, an edge rusher who, is a proven veteran, is a great edge rusher. It's going to allow them to get after Josh Allen, try to force him out of the pocket a little bit more, hopefully get some sacks, maybe make him make some errant throws. We have seen his production in passing gone down a little bit these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So let's try to get after him if you're the Seahawks. Let's try to get this win. Let's jump out to a nice 7-1 lead. I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks.
Love that. And, what we're looking at here now is, we just had a game where 2 winning records going up against each other. This next game, we have 2 losing records going up against each other as Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons host Drew Lock coming over with the Denver Broncos. And, it's just an interesting look with these Broncos. They've had Drew Lock out a couple of weeks. He came back last week through the game-winning touchdown pass. But who do we got in this game?
I'm still gonna go with the Denver Broncos. I like what Drew Lock did last week. Between Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay, you can really kind of run the ball, do a lot in the passing game with them. I also think with no Calvin Ridley this week with the foot injury, it's looking like he's not going to play. That they're going to rest him this week. They have the bye next week, and they're going to rest him again. It's really going to allow the defense to sort of take advantage, to keep their eye on Julio. It's going to be up to Matt Ryan to look more towards Hurst, to look more towards Gurley, to look towards his other weapons instead of Julio and Ridley, because he won't have Ridley going in this game.
Yeah, I mean, without Ridley, that's a huge hit. We saw him go down last week against Carolina, and they're looking to rest him and then have the bye week next week. But I'm looking for a massive day from Julio. Matt Ryan right now is leading the league in passing yards. Even though this team has looked sloppy and has had some rough losses in the first half of the season, I'm looking for a big game from Julio, and I want to see a big game from Takk McKinley on the Atlanta defense, switching side to side of the ball.
Takk McKinley is going to be out this week, which sucks because he just came out on Twitter and got the fine from his team. And I don't know if it's injury related or maybe if it's because the team didn't like the comments.
Yeah,
but they're going to be out 2 edge rushers in Fowler and McKinley this week. It's going to be hard for them to get after Luck.
Yeah, that is going to be tough. And, it is going to be interesting. With Takk McKinley, I was looking for a big game after that Twitter storm. But if he's going to be out, like you said, he's going to have to deal with it. He asked for a trade the last 2 years of the deadline, did not get it. He's looking to get more sacks. He wants to be in a better defense. But on the other side of the ball, for Denver, their defense, they've actually been pretty solid. I agree with you. I think I'm going to go with Denver on this one, even though I am expecting a big day from Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Now we're moving next to my team, the New York Giants, heading over to Washington to play the football team. And, the Giants fought last week. They looked really good. It came down to the last play, the 2-point conversion. Sean, can my Giants get themselves over this hump, playing the only team that they've beaten this season?
I think that this is probably the Giants' best chance to get a second win on the season. It's going to be tough, though. The Washington football team's defense has been very solid this year.
Yeah.
All said and done, they're a 2-5 team. They're right in the thick of the NFC East as a possible division winner. Surprisingly, still going on right now. They're 11th in points allowed. They're fourth best in yards. They're a very solid team. They're good at getting at the quarterback. And I think what we need to highlight here is, can the Giants' offensive line hold off the Washington football team's defensive line long enough for Jones to get the ball out, but also with no Saquon Barkley, obviously, after he tore his ACL, no Devontae Freeman now, to allow Wayne Gallman to find the holes necessary to get off big chunks. You can use the play action so you can be reliant on the run game. Or are they going to force the Giants to become one-dimensional and have Jones drop back a lot?
I really want to see Jones take advantage in this game. He's had some of his better games because he's played Washington 3 times already in his short career. But I really want to see him, drop back. And last week, he missed on some throws to Slayton that could have been touchdowns, long play potential.
That deep touchdown that could have been was this close.
They have it. They have the fight in them. Joe Judge, I believe in him as a Giants fan. He's a young, tested, hardworking guy. He doesn't take any crap. And, a big part of that is this defense, and giving opportunities to Daniel Jones more often. And it starts right there in the middle with Blake Martinez, who is the NFL tackle leader right now. Despite this lack of wins, he has 82 total tackles, a fumble recovery. The next person on the team after 82 is 47, Logan Ryan, who's also a veteran. And this defense is going to have to get going. I saw Leonard Williams play great last week. I want to see Dalvin Tomlinson coming up the middle and really just stopping this run game, disrupting Kyle Allen. But how are we feeling about Washington? Terry McLaurin, after Landon Collins, former Giant, is on IR for the football team. How are we feeling about him this week after he was named captain in his second year?
I really like Terry McLaurin. I'm happy that you brought that up because I was just thinking about that. His locker room speech that he gave to the team was really inspiring. I was like, oh, yeah, let's go. Yeah. I was hype. I was sitting there watching it on my phone. I was like, woo! I was like, let's go, my man.
Run through a brick wall.
Yeah, I was ready. I was like, that's my captain. That's my captain. I like him a lot. I think he's a great young player, is establishing himself as one of the best young wide receivers in the league right now. I'm excited. I think he's a great addition to be the captain. Truthfully, I think Washington's actually going to win this game. I'm sorry, Jack. They're at home. They got a lot going for them. I feel like the team has rallied around Ron Rivera. They have bought into what Rivera brings to the table. It seems that they all are beginning to kind of mesh as one. They love Terry McLaurin, like you just said. He just got named captain. This team is kind of beginning to see the formulation of what you thought you would get when you bring in a guy like Ron Rivera. And this is what you want to see when you're 2-5 in a division that you can still possibly win. And your team is now beginning to really rally behind your head coach and the players that you have, despite the different quarterbacks that have had to come in and play. We saw Dwayne Haskins at the beginning of the year. And we saw a little bit of Alex Smith, who had a great comeback from a massive injury 2 years ago. Now we're seeing Kyle Allen, again, familiar with Ron Rivera, knows what he needs to do to get it done. So I think Washington is actually going to surprise and walk out with a win. But I think it's going to be a good game because this is a division matchup.
Yeah, I'm going with the Giants in this one just because Wayne Gallman did look pretty good last week. 12 carries, 44. He got the touchdown. I do want to see him get a little more involved in the pass game. I think the Giants, played their best games with Barkley when he had good, receiving numbers. So I'm going to go with the Giants against this one. I want to go with, last time I picked the Redskins, the Washington football team, and, they lost. So I'm going to go with the Giants on this one in this second matchup of the year. This next matchup is one of the nominations for me for Game of the Week, going up to Tennessee, hosting the Bears. Both teams, one team 5-3, Bears, and Titans 5-2. And the Chicago offense right now ranking 28th in points for with Foles, but their defense is ranking 8th in points allowed right now. I want to say, but on the other hand, then we have Tennessee, and although Tennessee has the 6th highest scoring offense, the Bears have the 8th best defense. Who has the bigger impact here?
I will always go defense. I think when it comes to questions like that, I'm a big believer that defense wins championships, and the Bears have a great one between Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, Khalil Mack, Raquan Smith. The names of talent is pretty endless on the defensive side of the ball, and I trust that they can get after the quarterback. Mainly Khalil Mack. They signed Robert Quinn this offseason. He only has 1 sack in that game in week 1, which is not what you wanted to see when you signed such a prolific free agent like himself, who's coming off a double-digit sack season with the Cowboys the year before. So you want to see him get more involved, really get after Ryan Tannehill, try to make him uncomfortable. But the Titans have a pretty solid offense. And I also think that with the Titans having lost 2 games in a row, they know how important this game is. You can't afford a 3-game skid. You're now tied with the Colts for first in your division. If you lose this one, the Colts play the Ravens, and that's a 50-50 game. You don't know who's going to win that one necessarily, but you have to win this game if you're the Titans right now.
Yeah, and you said defense. Defense is the huge factor. The Bears 17 sacks right now. Khalil Mack 6.5 of those sacks. But on the other hand, when you're looking at Khalil Mack having 6.5 sacks, the Titans have 7 sacks on the year as a team. And this year it's going to be pretty tough for them to, hold this offense. Although they haven't been able to score, the Bears offense has been, moving the ball well. However, besides Allen Robinson on that offense, not too many things excite me. This Tennessee defense, after, making the trade for Desmond King, I think will look a little bit better this week in the secondary. But, what I love here is the Titans' 2, top receivers, Corey Davis and AJ Brown. Right now they are absolutely doing great things. They both were banged up at points in the season, but I'm loving it. They're really giving Tannehill a great matchup, and I think Derrick Henry, if anybody is going to go against this Bears defense, it's going to be Derrick Henry. I'm going to go with the Titans.
I agree with you. I think the Titans are going to get the job done. They know what's at stake, like I mentioned. I also think the COVID cases for the Bears, they're going to miss their center, Cody Whitehair. They're going to miss their guard, Jermaine Adepi. Those are two big losses. The sack leader for the Titans is Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle. This is going to allow him to feast. Montgomery has had a lot of opportunities, but hasn't necessarily produced. We haven't seen a touchdown from him. He's blown touchdown on the year since week 5. You need more out of him if you're the Bears. And now with a pretty shaky offensive line coming into this game, I think it's going to be even harder for them to run the ball against the Titans, making them a little bit more of a one-dimensional team, which is not what you want to see when Foles has been struggling since he became the starter after winning a few games. So I agree. I think it's going to be the Titans this week, especially at home.
Love that. Yeah. And finally, we get to agree on that one. Love that. I'm sure we're going to agree on this next one, though, that, when the Vikings hosting the Detroit Lions without Matthew Stafford this week and without Kenny Golladay this week, no Trey Flowers still on IR. So there, 3 huge playmakers on Detroit are out, and they're coming to you guys with Dalvin Cook having one of his career games.
I mean, that was a historic day for Dalvin Cook. You have no idea. Not only am I a Vikings fan who has his jersey, I also own him in a dynasty league. To get 46 points from him, I also beat Jack, FYI, guys. I beat Jack. That's who I beat last week on the back of Dalvin Cook and Patrick Mahomes, who had short weeks last week. I was so hyped watching that game. It's just, to see that happen. Kirk Cousins was just like clean in the pocket for the most part. This should be a fun game. For some reason, I'm worried about this game. I feel like the Vikings don't do well against second-string quarterbacks who have this weird thing. And once again, we're cornerback depleted. I feel like that's been the name of the game for the Vikings week in and week out. We're not going to have Holton Hill. We're not going to have Mark Fields. We're not going to have Cameron Dancer. We're going to be down 3 more cornerbacks yet again. So it's going to be up to the defensive line to try to get things done, to try to get after Chase Daniels. And you're right, though. With no Kenny Golladay, it is going to be a lot easier, I think, for the Vikings to defend them. It's going to be mainly Marvin Jones who's going to be the guy. And with no Stafford, it does kind of give them a little bit of hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we've seen the Detroit Lions without Matthew Stafford, and it has been pretty tough. When he is in there, he is a productive quarterback. It always just depends on the game plan and if he has to save it with a comeback. The whole thing here for me, though, is like you said, the Vikings still, injured, and with Marvin Jones still being the number 1 guy, Chase Daniel is a veteran. He's played in this league with a lot of schemes. He's able to attack young defenses with, maybe some knowledge that he has here where he can use Marvin Jones, Hawkinson, and this committee of running backs, Johnson, Peterson, Swift, to really just, try to expose the Vikings on certain points of it. My real whole thing here is the Vikings offense. We mentioned Dalvin Cook, but the defense here of Detroit is not going to be able to hold this Vikings offense and their scheme. The way that they played last week, they're figuring it out. Their record doesn't show it, but they are figuring it out right now. And, Justin Jefferson is a huge part of that. When we went back to the draft, you were like, I need to watch this guy play, see how I feel. But you've seen him, and you've seen that he is, the same way he was at LSU, making big plays, a lot of receiving yards, a lot of catches. And, this dude right now, 31 catches, 563 on the year, and 3 touchdowns in 7 games. That's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, I was definitely skeptical when we got him because I was such a Laquan Treadwell fan when we drafted him at Ole Miss. So my heart was ripped out from my chest watching Treadwell be on our team and basically do nothing. And so far in this one season, Jefferson has shown I'm much better than Laquan Treadwell. Sean, you have nothing to worry about. I've already doubled the yards that he had here in 4 years in my 1 year here, and I've scored more touchdowns. One thing I want to point out, because you mentioned Jefferson, indoor games. So I'm looking at the Tennessee game, 7 receptions, 175 yards, a touchdown. At Houston, another indoor game, 4 receptions, 103 yards. Against Atlanta, back in Minnesota, 9 receptions, 166 yards. This kid is amazing when it comes to indoor games. And I think being up against, going at home, being up against the Lions, a relatively weak secondary, Desmond Trufant will probably be on Adam Thielen. So he's going to get Jeff Okudah. Okudah has been a solid cornerback. He's young. He's a rookie, first-round pick. But he struggled this season. What we've seen from Jefferson is the ability to escape from even some of the best and most well-known cornerbacks.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Vikings. I really want them to win, obviously. I'm going to go with them. I think that between Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, this offense have enough weapons to overpower the Detroit Lions, regardless of what the Lions do offensively. And that also means Irv Smith Jr., who's been seeing an increase in production, I expect to continue to see that increase. So we're going to see three or four guys I think have good games. It's going to be Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, and Irv Smith Jr.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going with the Vikings on that one too. If Stafford and Kenny G were in there, maybe that offense puts up an extra couple of points. You worry about that comeback. With Chase Daniel, I don't believe that that's a factor. And now we move down to the AFC South with a game, a pair of 1-6s, not too much of an exciting matchup here. But we are looking here between, with Minshew out, do the Jaguars stand a chance here against Houston, or is Houston just that team that can step on their own toes?
This game and the Steelers Cowboys game to me are like, I don't want to watch these. I don't want to see these two teams. I don't want to see these teams.
They gotta have the whole package.
I just start off the bat so everyone watching knows. I'm going to go with the Texans. Deshaun Watson is going to be the factor. I think that he can definitely take down this Jacksonville Jaguars defense. And when you're looking at the Jaguars, they're going to be without Minshew. He has a thumb injury that he's been playing with the thumb injury for most of the season, which is, he hasn't been playing great, but as a quarterback, when your throwing hand and your throwing thumb is the one that's injured, it's going to be hard to win games like that. So we're going to see rookie 6th-round pick Jake Luton come in and take the start, and I think that's going to bode well for guys like J.J. Watt.
Yeah, definitely. J.J. Watt was talking earlier this week that his time in Houston may be coming to an end, just looking not to go to a rebuild state. But he wants to, he wants to make his name remembered this rest of the season. I think Jacksonville with a backup quarterback is just exactly his forte for a 2-3 sack game. I'm going to go with Houston on this one. Not too much to go through it, just looking out for, Deshaun Watson, David Johnson, James Robinson, Will Fuller, mainly from a fantasy perspective. I don't really see too much fantasy relevance in this game outside of those players.
Agreed.
I look at that as a backup quarterback to 1-6 teams. That's a tough matchup to love. But I'm going to go Houston. But
before we just move on, I just want to say one thing about the Texans defense and J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt currently is also at 99 career sacks.
Ooh!
So I'm going to say it now. I think he's going to get 2 sacks on the day. Not only is he going to get to the 100 mark, but he's going to surpass the 100 mark and get to 101. Again, a rookie quarterback is going to be playing Jake Luton. This is going to allow J.J. Watt to feast. Yes, and the Jacksonville offensive line is not great.
But we just talked about that bad game. That's probably not game of the week. But we actually, I mentioned another game of the weekend. This is a huge one right here. Baltimore Ravens at the Indianapolis Colts. Two teams that are, the Ravens right now, they're second in their division, but only because the team ahead of them is undefeated. And the Colts, they're 5-2. But, the Titans are 5-2 too, and they are really, they got a big match against the Bears. So I just got to ask, who has the edge in this game?
This is a tough one because it seems like the Ravens passing offense has struggled. And you and I have talked about this on our own. They signed Des Bryant to the practice squad. I'm not saying Des Bryant will be the fix of this team.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting to see that if this passing offense continues to struggle up against one of the best defenses in the league, where it'll be back-to-back weeks that they're going against tough defenses, I think it's time that you look to maybe bring him up to the active roster. Not for every single down, but I'm thinking red zone. Having a big wide receiver, having a big guy like that as your wide receiver could be really helpful in the red zone for Lamar Jackson, considering that Mark Andrew, I think, is the tallest receiving option that he has. And one thing that I want to point out with this game that we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the COVID list, they got hit this week. Marlon Humphreys will not be playing this weekend. He tested positive for COVID. He won't be in this weekend. And there is a list of players on the defensive side. Matt Judon is back, but he was on there. But you also have Tyus Bowser, Patrick Queen, LJ Fort, Malik Harrison, Terrell Bonds, Deshaun Elliott. These guys got hit this week. This is a large chunk of their defense, some of their playmakers. Harbaugh came out yesterday. He does expect them to be in tomorrow to get off of that list like Judon has.
Yeah.
If not, I mean, you're still missing Marlon Humphrey. This is a huge loss for this defense. And if those players aren't able to be on the field, you're missing some key defenders for your team.
Yeah, definitely. And both of these defenses this year have just been ridiculous. You mentioned the key pieces missing from Baltimore's defense there. And, they're the second best right now, Baltimore, in points allowed, only allowing 18.9 per game. But the Colts defense has been so consistently dominant this year. They lost Malik Hooker early, and everyone thought that this defense was really going to struggle. But on the other hand, they're really out here. They're second best in rushing, only allowing 79 per game. Sixth best passing defense. But on the other hand, they're gonna have their sixth best passing defense is a huge factor this week. Like you mentioned, Baltimore's offense, their passing offense is not what it was last year when Lamar was winning his MVP. They are 31st right now in pass offense, 179 per game. They're not even cracking nearly 200 yards per game. But right now, they are scoring 29 a game, eighth best. This is going to be a clash of a lot of running from Baltimore on the offense and a lot of passing, I think, from Phillip Rivers this week on the Colts offense.
Yeah, and that to me, I mean, he had a great game last week passing the ball, kind of shut down my comments about his weird throwing motion, which okay, Phillip, thanks for coming in, of course, after I call you out. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Ravens here. Again, I wrote about the Colts in the offseason. I've talked about the Colts being a good team and loving what they can do. Mm-hmm. But I think it's going to be really hard to run against them. With your Hines, Wilkins, Taylor, it's going to be tough to run against the Ravens, which means that you're going to be a little bit more reliant on the passing. T.Y. Hilton is doubtful for this game. You're missing your wide receiver one. Riley Cox is questionable, which could be a big loss if he doesn't get in the lineup. I also think, similar to what I was talking about earlier with the oh my God, why am I blanking on them? With the Washington football team, they know how important this game is. It's going to mean a lot. They have to win this game. I mean, the Tennessee Titans, I'm sorry, not the Washington football team. They know what this game means. It's really important that they stay in this division. They lost to the Steelers last week, who are undefeated in their division. You drop down to 5-3 in the AFC North. You still have to play the Steelers again in Pittsburgh this time instead of Baltimore. It's going to be that much harder for your season when you're looking at the playoff picture. The AFC is already pretty cutthroat. You can't afford another loss if you're the Ravens. And while that's the same boat that the Colts are in, especially leading the AFC South, I think that the Ravens have proven last year that they're a team that can definitely win. They're a team that can put up a lot of points. I want to see Lamar Jackson really, really go off against a good defense this week.
Yeah, me too. I love seeing Lamar have a great game. He hasn't really been, as dominant this year. He has been running, this Baltimore offense through mainly the run game. Right now Baltimore has 4 players with over 225, and Lamar is leading them right now with 411 on the ground. He's been able to really just be creative, but he's not going to have that opportunity this week against the Colts defense, which is just bringing a lot of pressure, great contain. He's going to have to use his arm this week, but I am going to go with the Colts this week. Crazy enough, I know that they're motivated. They came out with a win we didn't expect last week, and I wanted to see them really just flourish this week and show us that Phillip Rivers can have 2 good games in a row, that this team can compete, that they're not just a fluke 5-2, and they're not just it's not all about the philosophy of clock management for them. It's about getting creative and beating these big teams.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And one thing I just want to point out before we get on to our next game, when we're talking about this passing offense, Mark Andrews, the guy for Lamar Jackson last season, and seems to still be the guy for him. Yeah, he's my guy. I love him. I drafted him last year in fantasy, drafted him again this year in fantasy. The last 2 weeks, 10 targets, 5 catches, 53 yards, and no touchdowns. On the season, only 23 catches, 275 yards, 5 touchdowns. The touchdowns is impressive. That's a lot to get in the end zone for a tight end. but the yards are really diminishing. The receptions are diminishing. And I think for him to find him, i.e. Lamar, to find the passing rhythm, he needs to get back on track with Mark Andrews, who's been his favorite target since he became the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens.
Definitely. And I think that it's just going to be one of those matchups where we have no idea who's going to win until the end. It's just too good of defense and a lot of running. And with those, it's just who has the ball last.
This is either going to be a super high scoring game, or because of all the running and all the the clock that's going to be wasted because of all the running, it could easily be like a 21-17 kind of game also. It should be exciting.
Yeah, it should be a great game. And our last game here for the Sunday early morning games, we have two of the most electrifying NFL players on the field at the same time on the other side of the field. Christian McCaffrey is back. Since week 2, he has not been in the starting lineup due to injury, and now he is back. The Carolina Panthers are very, very excited about this. They're getting their guy, their 30-touch man, the guy who can get you 10 catches and 100 rushing yards, 100 receiving yards any day, 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey's back. On the other side of the ball, our boy Patty Mahomes is looking to let it fly after he let it fly last week. What do you got for us in this one?
CMC's back. You said it. I think while that's a huge addition for them, I still expect them to use a lot of Mike Davis, believe it or not. I think you're going to see a pretty even split carries for the most part between them. One, because Christian McCaffrey's come back for injury, but two, Mike Davis had a great season filling in for him. And you can't deny that he can play, and he can play well. So you don't just sit a guy who can do a lot for your team on your bench just because you have, your shiny running back. You got to try to find ways to utilize them both and get this defense a little bit off their feet. But on the flip, you're right. I mean, Mahomes had a great game last week. I mean, he was playing the Jets, so it's an easy team to throw against. Don't get me wrong.
He had a great game for you. He had a great game.
Yeah, he had a great game for me. Between him and Dalvin, I scored over 80 points, guys. It was a fantastic week to dominate Jack's team. But one of the things that I think is really important here, the two leading receivers of this team are Tyreek Hill, 35 receptions, 537 yards, 7 touchdowns, and Travis Kelce, 48 receptions, 610 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I mean, and Demarcus Robinson is great. Mecole Hardman is great. Sammy Watkins is going to be back. They're finally at full health. They have Le'Veon Bell. They have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What I think about this game, though, the Panthers are a scrappy defense. Mm-hmm. They're not one of the best. They're not one of the worst, but they're scrappy, and they know how to fight in these games. I expect a slightly more balanced game from the Chiefs compared to last week. I don't expect them to be throwing the ball as much, although you easily can when you have Patrick Mahomes because it's Patrick Mahomes. But I do expect them to be balanced. That means using Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That means using Le'Veon Bell, and then setting up the play-action passes for the super-duper deep ball to Tyreek Hill.
I love that. I mean, I love the receivers in this game, really, just looking at all the, the stats from this year, discussing them all year. Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore on one side, Kelce and Hill on the other side. This is going to be no shortage of offense, but both of these defenses can ball. We've seen them, create a lot of problems for teams this year. We've seen these, we saw Kansas City win games because of their defense, because of special teams. We've seen Carolina win games without their star player. Both these teams are scrappy and creative. It's hard to bet on the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, obviously, but I am looking for a big game for Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. Robbie Anderson right now, 688 yards on the season. He's maintained a top 5 in yards since week 2. And it's time to put some respect on Robbie Anderson's name. He only has 1 touchdown. We got to get this man some touchdowns. But that is the lack of true, deep balls that they've been throwing. Teddy Bridgewater is more of a West Coast quarterback. But I'm looking for them to get CMC and Mike Davis just back and forth, balanced like you said. But I am going to go with the Chiefs in this one. It's hard to bet against them in Arrowhead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go against the Chiefs in Arrowhead, considering that they're getting some weapons back and what we saw last week with them. Speaking of Robbie Anderson, I think the Jets GM came out and was like, "You dropped the ball on that Robbie Anderson one. I wish we had him back this week." So you see what happens sometimes when you let these guys go. Gonna go Chiefs here. Just got one question for you. Does Robbie Anderson find the end zone this week? We talked about it. He only has one touchdown that came in the week 1 loss to the Raiders. Does he find the end zone, get a second, possibly third touchdown of the year, or is it just going to be a big yards game?
I wouldn't say 2, but 1 touchdown is definitely good this week. Like I've been saying, Robbie Anderson's a great fantasy player just because he's been getting targets and yards, but the touchdown production's not there. However, I do think he does find it this week. I think with CMC in the backfield, you run a little gun set with Mike Davis on one side of Teddy B and CMC on the other. You got 2 guys in the backfield. It takes a safety off of Robbie Anderson, let him go over top. Let him do that.
I like it. I mean, 5 targets a game on average speaks for itself when you're Robbie Anderson. You're hoping to find the end zone at some point. I think it's going to be this weekend. I think you're right. That is all the time that we have. That is all the afternoon games that we got going on for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy Sunday night's game. Hopefully it happens again. We will try to keep you as updated as we can on our Instagram. If we hear any news that comes in from Bleach Report, ESPN, or anywhere else. Enjoy the Sunday early afternoon game, guys. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Enjoy the games. Remember to check it out on YouTube, Just Saying Football. Just check it out on justsayingfootball.com and check it out on Instagram for all your article and weekly updates of videos on Just Saying No GWJS. Thank you. Have a good game. Enjoy the game.